Jamal, let's each of us say hello and wave and say welcome before we officially start.
Hi.
Hello, everyone. Beth-Ann, say hello to everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, so everybody, we can hear everybody, all's good. We're having a little technical difficulties. Oh boy, don't we always? But I'm glad you can hear me. Okay, so we officially start, Jamal?
We will officially get started. Um, Everyone, as you come into the room, please feel free to introduce yourself and put what you do and where you're from in the chat. That would be awesome. We love to see that, collect that information. Um, And we're going to get started. So, welcome to our virtual speaker series for 2024. Today's webinar is Doing the Best for Our Children, sharing what I have learned, and it is being provided by the PA Care Partnership in association with the Office of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, also known as OMSAS. Thank you all for joining us today, and I am going to turn it over to Nancy to introduce our presenter.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I love this part where I sit and watch people come in and tell us who they are and what they do and where they come from, and would be happy just sitting here doing that. But unfortunately, I have a job, and my job right now is to introduce Beth-Ann McConnell, our speaker today. Some of you may recognize her face. She was with us last year as she spoke to us about getting ready for school. And I also know that she was at the recent, Beth-Ann, what was the name of the conference?
The Children's Interagency, 21st, right, Jamal? 21st Children's Interagency Conference up in Penn State.
And what did you speak about there?
Family engagement.
Family engagement. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to hear even more today. Beth-Ann is a school interagency coordinator and social worker, capital area intermediate unit. Such a name. Beth-Ann is back with us, as I just said, and she's going to talk to us about being a family member, an adoptive parent, and more. I'm particularly pleased with our title on this webinar, Doing the Best for Our Children, because I think that that's something that we all agree we're trying to do, and that Beth-Ann is here today to share what she has learned, both in her personal and professional capacity. And the other thing that I find very impressive about Beth-Ann is that she's into resources. And what I have in all my years, there's somebody that says, oh yeah, I'm going to get these resources together, and they'll put them on the internet, and a year later, nobody's touched them. And I guarantee you, it's outdated. And to find somebody who's keeping all of this information up to date is a great gift to everybody here in this room. And we appreciate her doing that, and how much that means to so many people. The other part of what Beth-Ann is going to talk to us about today is that she's going to guide us through some of what, from her experience, she'd like to share about how to take care of yourself so that you can take over. That isn't correct. So that you, the audience, can take care of yourself and your family. And with that, I'm going to turn over the webinar to Beth-Ann and Jamal.
Hi, everybody. I'm excited. I'm looking in the chat and I saw somebody on there that I know. So I won't call them out, but it's exciting to see somebody I know too. And thank you, everybody else. It seems like it's like quite a good response and just different things. I saw some families, I see some advocates, I see all sorts of different people here and just positions, and I'm excited. So thank you. So I will say, so Jamal, yes, we can start the sharing. When I was creating this, my brain was going towards being a family member and trying to navigate the different systems and teaching everybody here today about that. But I was also, Nancy and I were talking ahead of time, and knowing that it's not only going to be families, it's going to be families, it's going to be families and or people working in the child serving, you know, fields and different things like that. Just being able to take this and make it so it's relevant to all of you was actually really fun for me. So hopefully this will give you a bunch of different resources and just things that you can come from any angle of so whether or not you're a family member or you're helping a family. So I hope that's what your biggest takeaway here is. So this first slide is actually a part of my garden, and I have those, I call them my happy flowers. The little daisies are actually from my father's garden, who is no longer here with us, but I have, every year I get these flowers that pop up, and I'm so excited to see them. And anyhow, so it was just something that I thought I'm going to use that as my background. So that started that because it brings such joy to see them every single year, but also when I see them elsewhere. So even if, you know, my garden goes away or something different happens with the garden, I still have that memory of my dad and those flowers. So I love that. But the quote I found, it's not mine, but being gentle with yourself, or be gentle with yourself, you're doing the best you can. I love it. That was like, yep, that's going to be my thing for for this time of my life. I'm just doing what I can, and it's the best that I'm doing, and just to always remember to be gentle. So that's where we're going to head with this. The title of this, Doing the Best for Our Children. Nancy did a great job of like kind of getting us to why we picked that title. I put in my description of myself. You know, I know Nancy explained a little bit. I'm an interagency coordinator. I'm a mother. I have 2 children. I forget if she said that. We'll get into that a little bit. But adoptive parent, all these things, wife, school social worker. But one of the things I put in there is myself. I am me, and I want to just, for myself, I want to make sure I'm okay and I'm able to be the best that I can, so that I can be the best at all these other things, or at least, you know, be the best at trying to, you know, help others that I can. So Jamal, next, please. Okay. So the objectives of today is to help you to see that it's okay and to give grace to yourself. So I'll get to that a little bit later, but we definitely want to help you learn that throughout this day, that it's okay, whatever just to always remember to give grace. Providing tips and resources from someone who has made mistakes. By some, even myself, sometimes I might think, oh, I messed up with that choice or that whatever decision with raising different, family or different things. But there's always like this outcome that I've learned from it, or something else better that comes out of it. So hopefully that's seen. Start by using a continuum, sharing my ideas to get to the resource, to get to that resource point. And then provide a list of resources on an online platform called a Padlet. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But this will allow you to have access and to use now and in the future. And this is going to house a variety of county resources, statewide resources, resources for mental health navigation, education, and community and home needs. I just you'll get to see that. I'm really excited about this. So you're going to be able to walk away with these resources. So next, please. Okay, so if any of you joined me last year, we had just experienced my family, my youngest son there on the far right, just graduated. My oldest son, Trey, there to the left, had come visit us for the graduation, and that was a beautiful moment. And so we fast forward a year, here I am now. And so it's been a busy year of colleges and things and different stories. I will say that when I talk about my story, I also am very aware that some of what I don't always share all of my story, because it's not always mine to tell, but I will share in this training the parts that I, as a family member, mom, and also professional and as a social worker, kind of learned from different things. So you kind of get to hear a little bit of my story throughout as I'm telling the different resources, I guess. But I'm so excited. We're all doing great right now, and I just wanted to share that picture because it just brings a fast forward to a year. I can't believe it's been a year since I last met with some of you. Okay, thank you. Next. Oh, and before I forget, thank you. Not yet, Jamal, for showing this one. Sorry. Before I forget, I also forgot to say that there's times where, as a social worker in the field, I work in an intermediate unit. I work with different districts. I'm a preschool social worker. I work with various different families. And then when I had challenges in our family at times, there were moments where I was like, wait, if I'm supposed to be this person that knows all these resources, but I don't know how to help my own family. I had a friend of mine check me really, really strong one time in the nicest way, but again, giving grace to myself. So I just wanted to throw that out there. It's like there's things that sometimes weren't always perfect with choices and trying to navigate our different things. So I just wanted to say that ahead of time, that part of my story is really still working on being okay with like my own self-care and realizing, we didn't make, failures or anything like that. Okay, now, thank you. So what you're seeing in front of you is my gift to you, and it is a Padlet of resources. And I put it up there now, and it should be, I believe, coming in the chat too. But I will be referencing this throughout this training, just so you know. So I just wanted to make sure that you have that. Okay, next slide. All right, so what I've learned when faced with not sure moments. So as a family or as a mom or navigating different resources in our family, and also in my day-to-day job, sometimes I'm not really sure, with what choice we should do to help, my family or this family, whatever. So I always think, again, I've said it a couple times, like stop, take a moment. It's okay. Let's work on, giving grace to yourself, but then start with what you do know. So for families attending, I just want to keep reminding you that this is a time that could be very, very, whatever your feelings are, a lot happening, a lot of choices that you're not sure, and things are just happening at you, and you're not possibly sure what to do. But this is where I'm going to say, start with what you do know or who might know. So, and I'll break down this a lot more in a couple of slides, but just keep that in mind that like you want to go to what you do know or maybe someone else who knows. So if you're not sure, think of things as a continuum. So I'm a person who tends to look at a problem and I'm like, okay, what's first should we do? Sometimes, you want to go straight to the biggest thing, the biggest resource that's going to help your situation because you've heard about it from a friend, different things. But I want you to know that it's encouraged that you start small and then work towards what other things. So I'm going to say, so if we could slide to the next slide. This slide is going to work. The next one, not yet, Jamal, thank you. But we're going to talk a little bit about a continuum here in a second. But one of the biggest things sometimes I think people may not know about, and like right now, my one son's in Wisconsin, my other son goes to college in Florida, and stuff happens still. And I'm like, okay, let me think of resources for you, because again, that's where my brain goes. I'm like, trying to think. And 211, it's the United Way, is often connected with that. 211 can be a number that you can call and ask for resources in your area, kind of talk through the problems of what you're experiencing and see, different resources. So I just want to throw that out there because I'm about ready to go into a different thing here, but I wanted to mention 211. Okay, next slide. All right, so I cannot take credit for this continuum. The left side of it, Cumberland and Perry County, is my area, and then nearby with my IU, we also have Dauphin County. So we have also Franklin, and there's a couple other counties in my area. York is a tiny piece of our IU region, or intermediate unit region. But one of our Cumberland County CASP, and I'll talk a little bit about that later, person's name is Megan Johnston, and she has shared this continuum for families and different things, but we've done trainings together and we've done this, this way of thinking. So I'm going to break this down, but if you look, you start with like some thoughts, like community supports, and it goes down through all the way down. I mean, it'll goes down until like inpatient hospitalization. So I just kind of show you this, that this is a good way to think, I guess, whenever you're facing, you know, what should I do for my child, or if you're helping a family navigate different systems, to kind of think like this. And right now we're talking more the mental health or behavioral health type of things, but I'll break it down a little bit later in other ways too. So next slide, please.
Beth-Ann, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I'm a little bit unclear when you talk about a continuum and what that means and how I recognize it or how I create it. I'm not sure. Can you help me with that?
So that's the next part of my training. So I will be
good.
Yes, yes. Yep. I'm breaking it down right now. You're welcome. Thank you. Okay. All right. So when I'm going to think, like, let's say I have a child who is in need of, like, you're just seeing a bunch of different concerns with maybe behaviors or just things, just not sure. You just want to make sure you can like try to figure out what can we do for this child. So if you think about this in like, you would go to, wow, I did forget to put this on here, but I often think what physically could be a reason. So I do want to encourage people to check with their primary care doctor, just to make sure there's nothing physical happening with their child. So that's along with this. So keep that in mind as well. But so I think about this in like supports for the child. Like, are there things out there, like, is there after school activities that they could be part of? Is there some type of thing through the school, like a mentoring program? Is there peer connections that are in your community? Is there like a big brother, big sister program in your area? Churches can also be a resource for children, the YMCA, the YWCA. So there's a couple on here that I put on here. And for my family, I will say that we did try different things to, you know, with our children. We were like, well, what are you interested in? But we also had in our heads like, oh, well, my husband was a football player and I was a basketball player and this and da da da. So we had some stuff in our heads that were kind of like preset for what we thought might be. Oh, and baseball. Baseball was big in my family. I even played baseball, so it's kind of fun as a kid. But it was sort of like I had to learn with my children that my thinking for them was not what was for them. And so I started realizing that Trey was more into acting. Tyler was a karate kid. He was a band person. Trey's very musical. And things started changing where I'm like, okay, so I started getting them in those things in our local area. So that is just something to think about, like, you know, all those things. And then if you have a child who maybe struggles in those type of things, but still wants to be part of it, I've learned that I would reach out to the Y at times in our life, and I checked in with them and said, hey, you know, our child wants to go to camp, but, you know, we know there's some concerns and we'll need some extra supports. So I did some advocacy ahead of time to kind of, you know, let them know that might need some extra supports and stuff. And I did that with different things that their children were in. So that's just a little takeaway there, a little tip. So next, if things continue to be, a little bit struggling, and so Jamal, next slide, please. If the child is still struggling emotionally, you're just not sure what to do, there are some ways that I think too. So in schools, there's a student assistance program, and I would say check with your school and district for this. And this is generally for the older age children. Some in our counties, we do have elementary student assistance programs, and but not all counties have that, I will say. But you can reach out to your school is my main point with that, and see if there's anything that they have that they can maybe a student's assistance program would check and meet with you and talk with you, and then talk with the child and try to figure out like kind of what I'm not doing a great job of explaining this right now, but they could help you try to navigate some resources if need. So that's one idea. The school social workers, school counselors, not every district has school social workers. I'm going to throw that out there. It's becoming more and more that they are, because they are now certified school social workers in Pennsylvania, so that's exciting. And then schools counselors exist across the board. So these are a connection that you can check in with. There's also, I put on here connections with trusted adult. So if I'm coming from a family, like think perspective, sometimes it's not you that the child is necessarily able to talk to about stuff, but they need someone else. So I want to just throw that out, to be open-minded to that it could be another person, whether or not that is, I don't know, one of those mentor programs that you thought about or had your child in, like a church or different things like that. It could be a family member that's an aunt or uncle, somebody else, but I just want you to be open to that. It's who that youth or young child may say, this is my person that I want to talk to. I put on there, be a positive connection, and that can come from different angles, as far as if you're working with a child or just happen to be in a school with a child, continuing to be that connection. And then at the end, I put there, they may have been very challenging or hurtful to you. So this one was for a little bit of those who work with children, but also as family, because sometimes you, as the one that you have a trusted connection with, can be the one that feelings and emotions come out to the most. So it can be hard to go back to that. And I'm not asking you to continue to be hurt by someone. What I'm trying to say is that you can, if you need to now reach out more for resources to support you, and if you're the family and whatever, this is where I'm saying, please do. But also finding that positive attitude can be really hard at times. And this is where self-care is particularly important. And I always joke when I talk about self-care, I think people are getting to the point they can't stand that word or words. And I'm at that point sometimes, but it's very important to keep remembering how important. If you don't want to call it self-care, I don't care. If, like, I have a really close friend who will come and steal me and go get pedicures when my life is really, really, and that's a beautiful moment, by the way. But like, it doesn't even have to be that. It can be, I have another friend who, when things were particularly challenging, she would just come and bring me a Slurpee from 7-Eleven. So, I mean, it was just silly things like that. But you need to find something to take care of you. If you're coming from an educational and you're working with families or in the field of some way, working with a child who's particularly challenging, finding those moments to step away and heal yourself and find that moment for you. I did want to say on here, I know I'm talking a little bit older with the school age kids. If you have a child who is under, so birth to 3 years old or 3 to school age, so like in our early intervention, there are options for you, and I will explain this in a little bit when we go off to the resource Padlet again, but there is something, Pennsylvania Association of Intermediate Units. You can find your local one, and then also like finding or your early intervention for your range, your child's age range in your community. It's all going to be on the Padlet. So I will break that out a little bit here in a minute. Okay, so next slide, please. So as we go along, you could be finding yourself, and I know for our family, in case management services were needed, and in your county. And Jamal, I'm going to have you go out really quick to the resource Padlet if you can. And I'm going to show you where that is. So under the community resources, should be over to the right. So this is my Padlet, and I'm excited about this because it has, I think, everything I can possibly think on here. So I think if you can go to the bottom, there should be a slide, Jamal, that you can slide. Okay.
So how?
Like if, do you see the tabs up there where it says alphabet benefits? So to the right, like if you can somehow, there's more to the right.
Oh, there's more to the right. I got you.
Yes, yeah. Okay, there it is. Okay, yes. So under community resources, I tried to put in pretty much everything I'm talking about. Well, everything I'm talking about is in there. And thank you, Nancy. Yes, Padlet is a virtual bulletin board. I appreciate that, Nancy. Okay, so on there I have, you're going to see different, it should be under 211. There was something, it said 211. There it is. So I'm just seeing it does. Okay, so if you go onto 211 on or 211.org, I believe it is. But anyhow, you can put in your zip code and then try to find different resources. So the other thing is Jamal, can you go to the statewide resource? It's to the far right. It's a tab far right. If you go back up thank you. Should be under statewide resources. Okay. So I have, and there I mentioned earlier the PAIU, so that's there. And then I also, under the statewide, should have the county case management. I put a list on, it's kind of hard right now to see. There it is. Okay. I don't know. It's not showing the actual images, Jamal. I don't know why.
It's because of UPMC.
Oh, okay. Oh, is that why? Okay. I was having a little mini worry now. I'm like, oh no, it's not. Okay, so apparently they're blocked on UPMC. Okay, so under that county case management, I have a list that has all the different counties across the state that you can go to and say, as an option. So, okay, so now that we have that, why I put this here is number one, this can be a resource that, well, I do go to. So even if it's not from my family, but if I'm working with families, I can call up county case management and I can, my local county case management, and I can say, hi, I have a question about, some resources. And I am always met with people who have helped me with that. But if I am a family who needs to have longer term support in finding resources and navigating different things like that, and I have different needs and they're increasing, and I'm just not sure, then I can actually then put in a request to have to see if my child and us meet the qualifications for this. Now I will say, can you go back out to that slide, Jamal, please? Thank you. So I mentioned on here various levels. I'm going to tell you that across our state, all over the place, every county has some different terms. And so like Cumberland and Perry, it's mental health, intellectual and developmental disabilities. They have ICMs, intensive case management. They have resource coordination. They have administrative. They have transition, like all these different terms. Well, then you go 20 minutes over across the tiny little river, and their names are Mental Health Autism Developmental Program, MHAP or MHADP, developmental programs. And then their terms are a little bit different. So I will tell you that I'm very aware that I'm talking to a statewide, audience, and everything is going to be a term different. So that's why I wanted to make sure that you have on that resource padlet the list, and then to remember 211 if need as well. But why this is important, and I want to check my time here, but why I'm good. Why this is important is if your child meets qualifications, and it can be a very big help for us calling in and having somebody and being with the different levels of services that we had. It was a person who could, even though I know stuff, I needed that support. I needed that connection. I will say that there are, some struggles across our state sometimes with the ability to have maybe some of the staffing with different things. But I'm going to still tell you I encourage you to encourage your families to go and do an intake and, try to figure that out. But I do know there's sometimes a wait list for different services. So I wanted to just throw that out there and recognize that as true. So knowing that wait list and different things with different services I'm talking about today, it's important to remember, we're on a continuum. So you're going to be using different angles here and going back to some of the other options. You're going to go back to your county. You're going to say, okay, what else is out there? If this is not available, what else can I try? So I just want to keep throwing, those thoughts out that we're kind of, bouncing around. You might be using this service, but then that might not be available. So you're going to try something over here. So the next slide is on intensive behavioral health services. As a social worker for the preschool program, but also for our different districts, I help when children are at risk of not receiving it's called FAPE, but it's free and appropriate public education. Children are entitled to that when they're in the special education, and I help families and school districts trying to figure out different options when they are at risk or they are at home and needing to make sure that they have their education for whatever reason, that they are not able to be in the school setting, but they still need to have some type of education. So a lot of times, with all that lead up to, a lot of times I hear people saying, well, what about getting a TSS? So if you know what a TSS is, it's therapeutics that can't even remember anymore. It's no longer exists. It's therapeutic staff support. A lot of places still say that. And what that was as a one-on-one, a person to work with a child. And it was a recommendation often made by just people in general for families. And now that term is no longer even existing, and everything has shifted from what used to be behavioral health rehabilitation services to what is now called intensive behavioral health services, IBHS. So I am definitely sure that this is going to confuse everyone for a second. And the reason why I'm doing this is purposeful. As a family, to hear go get a, or to have someone say, hey, there's this service, it can be so overwhelming to think, what does that mean? What do I do? Where do I go? I have no idea. And so often whenever I hear it, our school staff is pretty well told by us at the intermediate unit, please don't say those terms to a family. Let's help them figure out what is best to do to try to figure out for your child. What I do is whenever I get a request for this, I will say to a family, what is your insurance? What is your, well, I always ask, what's your need? Have you talked to, your doctor, your primary care doctor? I do that first. And then I say, what's your insurance? What's your biggest concerns? What, are you interested in exploring options out there? So once I know what their insurance is, because that is I'll break it down in a second here. You're going to see a chart that I have, and you'll have access to it on the Padlet as well. But I think, again, like in lines. So I'm like, okay, the family, have they had a best practice evaluation from an agency that can say, what is the actual recommendation for your child? So then I say, okay, insurance, what is your insurance? So then I say, if you have private or commercial insurance, look in the back of your insurance card and there's a number. Let's call that number. Let's see what options are out there for finding someone who can do an evaluation to even tell you the direction. Maybe these things, I mean, there's a lot on the screen right now. Maybe these are not what that child needs right now. So let's find out from an evaluator what is best. So then I send them, to talk to their insurance company if they have medical assistance. And I will say in a second, we're going to go out there, Jamal, in a second, back to the resources, but not yet. I will say to them, all right, just totally lost my train of thought. Sorry. Okay, so let's actually go there. Jamal, can we go to the resource Padlet? All right. Okay, so after asking for insurance and different options of like, what have they tried? And oh, yes. Okay, I'm seeing that. We have a lot of these wonderful services, but staff is short and startup times maybe month. And I just forgot, I didn't see whose name that was. 100% agree, and you're correct. And this is why I tell, like whenever I hear from a family that sometimes it's more preschool for me, but a daycare center in our area tells parents, oh, you need to have well, they always say TSS most of the time, but now it's, intensive behavior person or BHT, I'm sorry, behavioral health technician. So, or a 101. When they say that, and I'm like, oh, okay, I know that it is not going to be a quick turnaround. Very much know that. So I get creative. So in our area, I think, okay, outside of that box, I still tell the family, here's your insurance, here's the steps to do a best practice evaluation in your community if you're interested. And I talk about that. However, I also go to what other things can be helping the families, what other resources. So if you're going to actually see under caregiver, grandparent resources, there's different resources. I have parent to parent. I start to connect those families with resources across the state. Parent to parent can match with another family. Totally forgot the other name. PA Family Support Alliance. There are so many other things to support the family as you're waiting. And unfortunately, sometimes it is that wait that I heard you say or read on the chat. But in our area in Cumberland County, there's different resources that I can think of sometimes that I'm like, okay, they're not insurance-based, but it could be like a parent support or a tips and strategies type classes. I know our Birth to 3 recently had something where I saw it was like just community, you can go and spend time and see like a webinar of different things. So I want to like share again to go back to your county and say, what else is there? I'm waiting for these things, or are there other things? So I just want to keep throwing out that it's kind of flowing back and forth. If you catch this, you're checking out other things. So Jamal, I'm gonna I think it's under the behavioral health. Oh, well, actually not yet. Do you see, Jamal, can you go under behavioral health, mental health? There should be, it's hard for me to see it without. Okay, go slide down, please. Sorry.
So there is
I'm looking
family
for,
engagement.
yes, should be a chart that shows like the flow of like how to navigate. Try to see if I can find it on there. There it is. Okay, guide for exploring options for behavioral health. So I will share that on a different slide coming up, but that is like one of my things I share to all my families. it has on there, I think it'll probably be better to just go back to the slide. And thank you. Okay, all right. So the next slide, so again, these are just terms. I showed what different terms are under that. I'm not going to get into all of that. Another thing sometimes families try to find is applied behavioral analysis, or ABA. Again, this is also a service that sometimes can take a while to actually get if recommended. I'm noticing a little bit here and there. Sometimes there's different agencies that have stuff, and I encourage families again to just continue to go and try to find out what the evaluator would best recommend for their child. So could be ABA, it could be the intensive behavioral health stuff. So I just wanted to make sure. So the next slide is my little, I'm going to say my cheat sheet. So in order to receive behavioral health services, it says, yeah, you may need to. So it's going to mention on here, and again, this is on that Padlet. So if it's hard for you to see right now, I do apologize for the tiny writing, but you're going to want to make sure you get a written order from a licensed individual who is enrolled as a person who could, as a medical assistance provider, or somebody who can actually write these scripts. You can also schedule a best practice evaluation. Again, how to do that is through finding out what agency under your coverage for your child can do these. And I know in our area, sometimes it's quicker to get the evaluation, but then you're waiting for services. So I'm thinking that's too what the person in the chat was also, yeah, they're great resources, but they may be challenging. So, but we want to make sure you get this. And I always tell families, yes, you're going to get, you possibly could, if your child meets the needs, you might get this recommendation, and now what? So then I say, okay, you're going to go back to your insurance and you're going to say what agencies could potentially provide that service. It might not be the same one that did your evaluation. So I just want to keep that in mind. So you're going to go back to them and you're going to say, okay, what else? Now, also, you can find, sorry, I was reading the chat. You can also find online, like, so in our area, we have Perform Care, and we also have community care behavioral health for our different counties as a managed care that oversees the behavioral health stuff for medical assistance. So you can go to the websites and say, I'm a family member, and look up different agencies. This is what I tell families. Put your name on as many lists as you can. And I have had families who call me, I'm like, I'm on this many lists and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yes, that's good. And then check in with them. And I mean, I'm going to say, be a little bit of a, like just not, I don't want to call it, like, you're going to be a big advocate for yourself. So you're calling and you're checking in on those things and just finding out, the wait list. Now, back to if you have a case manager, having, reaching out and having someone help you with all that too. So, if you're a family member, you may be exhausted and all of this feels so overwhelming. You can please encourage yourself to be able to have people help you. That was sometimes one of my faults. All right. So next slide. Trying to think if there's anything else with that. Okay, no. Okay, next slide, please. So in the continuum, I also have sometimes family. Whoa, is there a slide right before that? I don't know if we jumped. Oh, there it is. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jamal. So in-home supports. This is becoming more and more, as you see, I wrote intensive in-home supports. Sometimes families have family-based. Our family had family-based. We had several rounds of family-based, and it was much needed for us. And we've tried all the other things led up to this moment of needing family-based. I will say in our area, family-based services tend to be a little more available sooner than some others. That's what I've seen in our area. Some of the one-on-one services are not as available sometimes as the family-based. So I don't want to say that across the state, and I don't want to get in trouble for that, but I just want to say that I know here in our area, sometimes. I don't know a lot about the other two that are mentioned on here personally. I know of them, the multi-systemic treatment, juvenile fire setter, but these are just other supports that are out there that I found and know about. But sometimes families need that extra person as a team to come in and help and try to work with your child, but work with you and kind of like see what's going on inside of like just maybe needing that extra support as the family. And also like there can be siblings, like we've had 2 children, so also supporting our other child and trying to figure out which things kind of just so everyone can be as healthy as they can be. So but this can be a pretty intensive support, and it is at times, and but just keep in mind it's a resource that's out there. Okay, next slide. All right, community residential rehabilitation host homes. So there's a lot of words on this slide. CRRs, community residential rehabilitation, are can be, trying to think how to explain this, can be a host home where a child goes to where it's not exactly like foster care, but they have a family who's trained in mental health ideas and having that support for a child who can, it's a family dwelling, it says that, whose behavioral health needs prevent them from being in a current home setting. There's also some group homes across the state. I don't know the update on that completely, but there's different homes. I don't think they call them group homes, sorry, but community, there's site settings that are more like, it's not exactly a family member living, like the child's living with a family, but they're in like a home light setter. So there's different options. As you're noticing, these are becoming more and more intense of treatment options. So that's kind of, again, like if you're thinking of a continuum, you may not be here with this, but please note that there are things that to try before all of these options. So I think that's kind of my point here. I just wanted to kind of note these. Next slide. Okay, residential treatment facility. I am on so in our area, we have, I guess I forgot one of the slides, I didn't talk about this, but in our area, we have, it's called CASP, but it's, I'm gonna go way back to my slides. Sorry about this. Some counties, Jamal, can you go actually sneak back out to slide 7? Would you be able to do that?
Slide 7.
Yes, slide 7.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. So under that community supports and activities, I wrote, actually it's on the second slide down. I wrote about the CASP. CASP is available. So it's, my brain is completely just, okay, my goodness. Sorry. CASP is available to some, it's across the state, but not every county has a working CASP. And so Child and Adolescent Service, Social Service Program. Okay, I had to get that. In our county, in Cumberland and Dauphin, we have a team of individuals that meet when the child is in need of just finding out different resources and different things. So we can come together as a team. The family can call, and we did this with my family. We can call our CASP coordinator and we can ask to do these meetings. And then with that, you sit down and you talk with this team about the concerns, the positives, the strengths, the weaknesses, the concerns, and then you get into the the deep what's happening kind of a little bit with the child and try to say, okay, what resources out there? And they kind of do what we're doing right now. They go through, like, did you go through community sports activities? Did you try all those? Do you have any type of mental health connections right now? Do you have a therapist? Do you have outpatient? Do you have case management? So we look at all of those things, and I'm actually on this team too, coming from an education, but also a family perspective. And we say to the family, okay, here's all these resources. So I just wanted to mention this because when we get to the question of, sometimes families are like, I'm not sure what to do anymore. We've explored all options. We've exhausted all options. We're at this place. And there's this request for like a residential treatment. I see it a lot with my work as the interagency coordinator for my intermediate unit. Different districts, families say, I heard, is this an option? Can they go to these residential treatments? So now, Jamal, can you go back to that slide that we were on for residential? Thank you. Okay. So I say all this because I asked, did all those other things get exhausted? Did you try these different things? Are you at this place? So if you're the family, if you're the youth, if you're the, those helping the child, and you've tried all those things, and, it's still, it got to this place where this is a discussion. You have now psychiatrists who is saying residential treatment is the option that they're recommending. So where I say this as a family member is, and also from like a school perspective, when a child goes to residential, if that is what is met and it is decided through the county and everybody said yes, the psychiatrist, insurance, that's the plan, child saying yes, all those things, and we're now here and they're going here, it's important to remember discharge begins at admission. That is not the place to be staying forever and ever and ever, and that the child and everybody understands that. I think as a school, I think it's very important that a school stays involved, and I think it's very important as a family that you're advocating for your child, and as case management, anybody who's involved with you at this point, that the advocacy stays strong. I think as a family member who experiences this, it is exhausting, and you lose sometimes the ability to keep it all together with the advocacy. But it's very important that you reach out to those people that you have included in your life throughout. I will say that it's important to keep the school involved because you don't want, there's already going to be changes with a child in their school. From one place to the next, often it's a different school setting, often it's a different district, depending on where that child is. So just all these things, you want to keep advocating, and if you can't yourself, making sure that you have somebody who can help you do that. The other thing that I tell families, that sometimes those people who are your case managers can sometimes change, depending on what level of care your child is under. So that's sometimes a surprise. Sometimes the medical, like if you have a managed care organization, like in our area, Perform Care, they have care coordinators that oversee. You can call them and you can talk to them about what different resources are. But they kind of change. They can change if the level of care changes as well, at least in the experience that I've had. So it's just a thing to keep in mind. And sometimes you do, like I said, you have to just if you need help, ask for that help and be open to that. So this is sometimes a tricky one here. Okay, next slide. Now I want to also mention partial hospitalizations in our area. Recently, I know we have Pinnacle. Well, we have child and adolescent partial hospitalization psychiatric program. I call it Pinnacle. Sorry, that's what it used to be called. But anyhow, we have I noticed recently that there was openings for that. So this is just, there's information up here. It might be something just to look in your area. Check with your insurance, your area options. Transportation may be on you, so you might want to check on that. Sometimes, checking in with the actual partial program, if you're interested in, they'll tell you kind of some ideas too for your options. So just wanted to mention that. The next slide is crisis intervention. Under my Padlet, so if you want to go to that again, Jamal.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Under coping with a crisis, so probably to the right. All right, so I have some of my local ones on there, but I also have the crisis text line. I have so our intermediate unit, I have a website with some resources on there. I have 988 on there. So that's a text. You can text 988. You can call 988 for crisis. There is a bunch of different resources on there. Now, I will say that making this continuum, I would say crisis, the continuum, the way it was set, sometimes I think, like a lot of families, I do encourage, if you need to call crisis, you do need to go to crisis. I'm not in any way saying, oh, you should wait till after you do, like exactly like these. Crisis could be called earlier on. If you have family-based services, you have a team of people that you can call, at certain levels of the crisis. Then there's others where you may still need to call your local crisis or take your child to the local crisis emergency area. So I don't know all of the areas across and the exact steps to that, but I just wanted to make sure that you have all of those resources right there so that you have something to go look to for your county and your area. All right, so next, flip back to the slides. I do mention inpatient psychiatric hospitalization, just really, really briefly. I mean, that's a recommended thing. That's going to be lots and lots of different you could have psychiatrists involved. You're going to have different possibly case managements. You're going to have crisis involved. So there's a lot of different involvements to this if need. And I don't know if anybody will type in this, but like this could be a challenge to find, as some people say, beds for this need and children could be sitting in the emergency room for a little bit. I have seen that in my area. So I think I just saw a chat, but I'm not sure, Jamal, was that something that needed to be answered now?
Nope.
Okay. All right. So then the next time I'm going to switch out of mental health and not really mental, like you'll see. So the next, I wanted to say that school needs, continuum other needs. I also think next slide, please. When you have a child who is struggling in their school environment, if you joined me last year, I had the back to school and other tips and whatever. I wanted to put on here that Padlet from last year, and that discussion that I had last year has so much resources on, like, if you can, just tips for you. But I just wanted to say that, and I don't know, Nancy, can you put this in the chat? You might be doing that already, this Padlet link. Thank you. I also think, so like with our child, I knew, because I worked in the field of this, to make sure that I put in writing, like there was concerns happening more and more with school and getting calls after call and meeting after meeting and meetings and and I was like, okay, what is going on? Can we please have him evaluated for the school? So I put it in writing, and I don't know the exact I think it's 60 days, but I don't want to don't quote me on that, please. But like we had a certain amount of time our district had to get back to me to be able to set, that up and determine, yes, we're going to move forward. Their school psychologist was going to meet with us and we're going to do, an evaluation through the school. And so one of the biggest things I tell families is put it in writing, put your needs in writing and request. And if you have stuff from the outside, and I come across families sometimes having, said, well, this is what diagnosis I've been given out here by this agency. And then the district has, they don't know. So you're taking that information, but the district still needs to do their own evaluation and meet as a team with you. And so those things, I just wanted to make sure that you gather like your own thoughts, your stuff, take it to the school, ask for, a meeting, and then to provide that and ask for that evaluation. So I just want to, and then, and if you're hearing from the school, chances are they're having concerns. So, making sure that, let's all talk and as a family. And believe me, as I'm talking, I can hear some families and myself say, it's not this easy. It's not always this easy. And I just want to recognize that. And, I just, it can be a big challenge sometimes. And so as best as we can today, hopefully these resources will help you. So I said, reach out to other parents. And so again, back to that one resource, I said, parent to parent, it's such a great resource. I know the one lady in our area that comes to our meetings for different things through the intermediate unit. And she helps to match families in our area. So just a really great resource. And I think it said PA Family Alliance. Like there's so many different options. I know now there's like, maybe Jamal or Nancy can help with this one, but I know there's peer support, family peer support. There's different options that are out there. So for kids, if they want other supports too. So correct me if I'm wrong or tell me, Jamal and Nancy.
Nope, that is
Okay.
absolutely correct.
Okay. And if there's a resource that's not on this Padlet, if you want to let Nancy know, she can tell me, I can get it on the Padlet. But I just want to make sure. So again, there's the back to school tips. Some of those I did not like. So that sheet, I think it still works from this year, from last year to now, that you can see that's on this slide. So it's just some tips there. All right. I don't know what time it is, Jamal. How am I doing?
It's 1:05.
Okay.
So you still have a bit of time. We're good.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the next slide I wrote, important to develop contacts. How do we start to do that? So I do laugh at this image though, because I don't know how many people have phones like that, but I don't know if you can, I don't know if everybody's laughing with that one, but anyhow, I actually took this from another training that I was in that was a part of a couple months ago that someone made that slide for me. But anyhow, I love it. Okay, so identifying contacts of people that you do know. If you remember from the very beginning, I talked about like this could be reaching out to people that you know or thinking of the things you already know. So I kind of went through all this. I went through like, well, is there people in the mental health world? Is there early intervention? Is there intermediate units, intensive behavioral health supports, different things like that? Like, what do you already know? And then trying to figure out like what counterparts are there for you. So like if I've said terms today where you're like, these don't exist in my area, and I'm very, very aware that like in one area, like even in our area here and one, I won't say county wise, but like in one of the counties, it's far harder to find somebody who will even go to this one area because of the distance into the middle of where they are. And then the next area, I'm like, oh, they're right there, and different things. Or they have this running, and it just still kind of blows my mind sometimes where in one side of this world, I'm like, well, this program exists, but it doesn't over here, or it does, but so it can be very, very, very frustrating. So how do we figure this out? And I kind of gave that up earlier. This is where I do, honestly, I call my local county case management. I ask those questions. I I called 211. I just did that recently because I wasn't sure for a family. So I called, and I do encourage families to call themselves, but I also sometimes, will call them because I never, ever, ever as a staff ever like give a resource out without checking it first. And then the other thing is I always say, and I think people around me get tired of me, but have you checked with your insurance? Have you checked the back of your card? But if you don't have private insurance and you have medical assistance, have you called, your Perform Care or whatever your managed care organization? By the way, I forgot to mention on the resource Padlet, I do have the list of all of the managed cares across the state too. So that's on there as well. So if you're not sure what yours is, it's listed on there. But anyhow, so I'm trying to find the counterparts across the area, calling 211. I now started to develop kind of my little list. And I remember now everything's so like online and whatever and on my phone or whatever, but I had this big binder full of stuff and I had all these names and I had all this stuff and I'd go in and there it is and I'd call this person and I would connect. And it's actually how I got to, so one of my things that I'm part of is the PA Care Partnership, but connected to them because of the state leadership management team. I am a family member on there. Well, it was actually because of this type of thing. I started developing people that I knew, reaching out to one. The person from County CASP, Megan, gave me this recommendation to try to get on the state leadership management team. And I tried, and now I'm on that as a family member. So it's pretty exciting. It's well led to me knowing Jamal and Nancy. So that's pretty cool too. So anyhow, so reaching out to these different people, that's how you start to develop this stuff. So this is also for you, like if you're working in this field and like working with kids or whatever, this is how I did it. I started just calling around. One of my favorite jobs at the IU, my intermediate unit one time was working for, I was a social worker for charter school. And so they contracted me and I got to work across the entire state. And so I was like, oh, I don't know Western, but I still have, I don't work out there, but, I know some of this area, but not this, but I was able to find by going to the main things that I've told you so far, going to the county, going to that mental health people, the case managements or whatever it was, I would go and I'd call and say, sometimes it was children and youth too, by the way. And I would call them and say, okay, what's in your area? And that's how I helped that family across the state. So that's that direction of things. Okay, next slide. These are just some, I call it linkages in the community that I've connected with. So these are different ones. I'm not going to get into all of those, but I mean, I could go on and on. I still have my little notebooks of stuff that all my different resources, but these are mine in my little area. And then on my resource palette, I do have the intermediate unit site. If you went into one of I have our capital area intermediate unit, and it takes families to resources there. So it's all my different counties on there. Okay, next slide. Some of the takeaways. I think you've heard me say it probably a lot. Think of steps like a continuum. I'm not going to say, I can't think of the word right now, but it's like, it can move around a little bit too. It doesn't have to be so like, oh, you have to do this, this, and this, and this, and this, and this. So there's going to be a little bit like you may have to do this one before the other one. If you do have CASP in your area, it's a great resource in ours. And that insurance and let's see, knowing your crisis connections, your student assistance programs, all of those things, and then taking care of you, so you can take care of those you work with or your own child. Okay, next slide. And this I stole from my slides from last year on my school one, the back to school. So this was just an example of that. So again, if you want to, I do have that Padlet on my current Padlet that's here today. All right, next slide. All right, general tips and takeaways. go back to basics. And when Nancy and I were talking, she put it like this, and she can jump in if I say it all wrong here, but build from a foundation, start at 111, start at 101. And that was like the biggest thing for me. Go back to your basics. What do you know? Who do you know in your area? Know fundamentals, and it'll take you to the resource you need. Now, noting again, I know whoever that was that put in the chat, some of these resources are strained. I know that. And I don't have a complete solution for that. I can just tell you to then let's slip over and say, okay, if someone recommended a behavioral health technician, but it's not going to happen for a year, which could happen, what else can that evaluator recommend? Could they do, I don't know, some outpatient therapy? Is there play therapy? Is there some other type of, do they need trauma therapy? Is there some other service that is available that you have to think outside of that I'm going to say box? I don't know what else to say. What else can you be? Because I know sometimes I very much know that some child care centers want that, need that. I'm aware. But on the other side, can you be working and taking them to these, whatever, if it's an outpatient play therapist or something like that. Biggest point I too want to make is that grace part. Be gentle with yourself. Biggest, hardest person on myself is me. And, we've had some pretty sticky situations in our situation, but me. You know more than anyone what message you're saying to yourself. So hopefully you can hear what I'm saying today. So next slide. Should be my, I forgot this. So family engagement versus family involvement. I did do training, as Nancy mentioned, last, when was that, April? I don't know, with our children's interagency conference. And I got to talk about family engagement, and it was just an amazing moment, but I wanted to put this on there. I have the family engagement. Sorry, Nancy, I forgot about this. This is another Padlet of resources right there. So if you need me to, Nancy, I can try to get that into the chat, or Jamal, I don't know. But that's another one. But I was looking at the bigger picture. So often families, sometimes people don't always understand that what all families are really going through may be the reasons why they're not looking like they're super involved in whatever that is. So you can insert education, their behavioral health, whatever this is, but just to be considerate of the fact that they could themselves be experiencing a lot of trauma histories, or have cultural backgrounds for reasons why they may not able to go get behavioral health services. It's just to be aware. And this is no time to get into all of this, but I just want you to be aware that it may not be that they don't want to be, or that they can be, like there might be reasons. And then to try to still surround that family and be there for them. Okay, next slide. This is the resource Padlet. And I think that's it. Am I correct, Jamal?
You are correct.
Thank you, everyone. All right, did I give enough time?
We are good. You are good.
Good. I'm sorry if I can't see the chats really easy. They'd pop up and then they would be gone. So, all right, any questions?
Currently, we do not have any questions. So I'm going to take some time to say thank you, Beth-Ann, for your presentation. I think looking at things when we're talking about a continuum, and looking at it as sort of the least restrictive and moving forward to the most restrictive. So you have your community supports, and it's difficult for families sometimes, I think, because you're frustrated and you're not sure where to go. I think you provided us a lot of information to where to start and to where some things could be. And sometimes those things, you jump around on that continuum depending on where you are in your family, right?
Yes.
So thank you for providing the information for us. Thank you for providing the Padlets, because I think resources are everything. I think when you're talking about CAST, when you're talking about system of care, and everything, that we believe in, having those resources available, knowing that you can go somewhere to get a start, is a very important thing. And I think those Padlets really provide that for people. So thank you for all of your hard work in putting those together, because resources and knowing that you have a place to start to look for things is a big thing. So thank you for that, Beth-Ann.
You're welcome. Thank you.
No worries. If anyone has any questions for Beth-Ann, please put those in the Q&A. We still have a few minutes.
I am seeing the comments now.
Yeah, I was just
Thank
reading
you.
in the
Yeah.
chat to see if we had a question in there or anything.
There's something I would just jump in as a comment, since we have a minute. In, part of my job, many facets of creating this series is the promotion and marketing of it. And I'm always trying new things. And this year I added a final email blast that would go out that said, join us for lunch.
Mhm.
And last year we switched over to noontime to do these, and found that there were more people who were available during their lunch hour. And also, which was just as important, if not more so to me, people that might not otherwise get the permission, to step away from their desk or have the opportunity to step away from their desk to attend a webinar in the afternoon, might be able to do it at lunchtime. And I felt with what Beth-Ann was doing today and sharing with everyone was almost like saying, oh, let's all sit together at lunchtime, in the staff room and, talk about what we're up to, talk about what we're doing, talk about what we've learned. And so I am glad that we had Beth-Ann that was able to do that for us today. But I'm also going to encourage y'all to maybe do the same things in your own offices, to take those opportunities to share your experiences, your frustrations, your lack of resources, or whatever it is, with your peers, and maybe work some things out. We had a great webinar last week where we were talking about using music as a healing tool. And I felt that opportunity to share, and afterwards found out where there was collaboration going on with members of the audience. And that was very exciting to me. And so I'm hoping that you all are feeling that same. This is really great. Man, I really needed this. Wow, I can go there and check this out, and appreciate what, Beth-Ann has provided for all of us who are in this field. Just had to say that, had to jump in and say that.
Thank you, Nancy. I see that Karen just posted a sort of a question. It's rhetorical, as she noted in the chat, but I think it's one that is noted. She says it's hard to know how aggressive we need to be in finding help for a child or teen with special needs. How long should we be willing to wait when the process seems to be so long and our case manager is overloaded, and we know others have even greater needs in many cases? So Beth-Ann, I'll pose the question for you. I have my own thoughts, but I'll pose the question to you. And how do you handle that when that things are what they are, like you discussed, things are overloaded. We know that there's a lack of staff, a lot of different things going on when it comes to services. How do you handle that as a family member?
So for me personally, because I'm now reading that question, or yeah, that statement. I First of all, obviously the teen has some thoughts, in all of this too. So it's trying to figure out like what are they open to, able to do for themselves, and if it's a big hard no, because that could have been an experience that I may have experienced at times. Yeah, I don't want those, but yet then I had to think of like, okay, I still need resources, and we still, my husband and I still need resources, and my other child, whatever. So then it's trying to figure out, that angle of like I can go to counseling if I need to. I can go to, different things, or I can reach out to my county still. And I can say, if you do have a county CAS person or whatever, and I can say, hey, what resources are for our family. So I would say, I don't know that I would say how long, I think it's okay to do that. I don't know I don't want to say put a time on that, but I think it's okay to do that. And if your casework manager is overloaded, I completely can understand that. I always joke that, like, I mean, this is my first year. I'm having a person help me in preschool. I have 3,000 kids on my caseload right now for preschool, but I'm now going to have somebody new. So I understand that overloaded, overwhelmed. But there's that's where I would say, I think this is Karen actually, I would say then talk to your case manager, but then go to, maybe the supervisor can, help you with some resources in that case, or, your county, what other options are out there, what, checking in for you personally, maybe just to be able to find out like what other resources for you. And yeah, well, how about you, Jamal? What would you
Yeah.
say?
Yeah, and I think that's great advice. And I also think that it's never stop. I remember very clearly, especially when dealing with my daughter, when she was going through what she was going through, and thinking that, there are other people who are maybe more needy and all of those things, and trying to be very understanding about the system and how everything works. And that's you have a huge heart. That's a beautiful thing, but your family is important also.
Mhm.
So, I always say, always keep advocating for what it is that you need. And if you aren't getting it as fast as you need it,
Mhm.
try to find those stopgaps. Try to see what community resources are available to maybe help that wait time be less frustrating. Because that's the thing, I think sometimes when you get put on a wait list for a certain service or provider and things, and it's coming, but it's not coming as fast as you need it. What can I do in between time to help my child, to help my family, to help me not be as frustrated? What are those stopgap measures that you can do? Is it some type of respite? Does the county offer, or whatever it is, to help you get through until you can get the service that it is that you need? Is one of those things that I think that you know um you can do. I think sometimes as parents, we feel a bit of relief when we know that something is set up, but then we don't realize how backed up certain services and things can be. And then it gets frustrating. That's when it becomes frustrating, because you find a service like, oh, thank God I found something that can help, but then you don't get it immediately. And that can lead to a lot of frustration. So I would say never stop.
Mhm.
Always try to find, stopgap measures to help you and your family, as you move along until that service starts, definitely. Because I know that can be a very frustrating thing. So, um, yeah, just don't stop. Always advocate for your family, because those things are important. No matter what it is somebody else is going through, your family is important, and you deserve the services that you need to, make your family whole. So,
I will say that I definitely am very a person who I know a lot of like like our case managers and stuff in our area. So because I work in this field and experience, the other side too of stuff, I would know their caseloads. I would hear this information, and I would feel, and I'm even for the school, working in a school, and but I also had to learn this is my family. And and I'm going to tell you that I didn't always learn it, by the way. I did not always do well at it, but there were moments where I was like, I have to get this and I have to work for this and I have to advocate I hate to say this, I can't think right now about all of that. So, but, in the back of my, I'm very, very, I don't know what the word is, but I do care about that stuff. But in the end, Jamal, what you just said, Karen, if you need to do that, it is okay. It is okay. Yeah.
Well, I want to say thank you again, Beth-Ann. Thank you to everyone who came out and attended. I'm going to turn it over to Nancy real quick, our last couple of minutes, so she can close us out.
Thank you, Jamal and Beth-Ann. I want to be sure that everyone knows about our next webinar, which is coming up on July 15th. I put the information in the chat, and it's on domestic violence. And we had some incredible speakers earlier this year that talked to us about human trafficking. And we actually had 1,200 people in that first webinar about human trafficking. But from that webinar, we learned about the close connection between human trafficking and domestic violence. And I find it all very disturbing and difficult to hear and know that it's going on around me. And what can I do or what can I not do? And we've asked these speakers back to talk to us more about domestic violence. And I hope that if, I would welcome you all and encourage you all and to share this information, to come out and learn more about it, because what we know for sure is that everyone knows a victim. And so I don't want to end on such a negative note. Let me end on a positive note, which is, let's remember the other part that Beth-Ann told us, which is that give ourselves some grace. Let ourselves fail sometimes, accept that we're all doing the best that we can, and reach out and ask for help. Always.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Jamal. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Beth-Ann.
Thank you, Beth-Ann. And thank you to everyone out there. Appreciate your attendance, and we will hopefully see you on July 15th. Until then, take care of yourselves and have a great day.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.